Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining me with another episode of the Real 1% podcast, where we look at military to civilian transition and everything in between. Today, we got another special guest. Everyone that comes on is a special guest. His name is Wayne. He comes from this is going to be a story of your circumstances don't obviously make who you could be in life. So he comes from an unwed teen mother, and she dropped out of high school because she had kids to take care of, right? And she obtained her GED. He stated that they lived in poverty, and she bounced between jobs, which is what most of them do, which is sad but true. They received WIC and state assistance while he was growing up. During his childhood, his mother was not able to keep up with, taking care of him, and he ended up bouncing through some foster homes, and he also lived with 3 of his uncles on his mom's side before he was 10 years old. He repeated the cycle, unfortunately, and got his high school sweetheart pregnant at the age of 16 in the 10th grade. And although from his mother's working all the time, he knew the importance of education and, getting his high school diploma. He graduated on time. And 1992, he decided that he was going to join the Marine Corps. He joined in 91 because he was in between his 11th and 12th grade year of high school. And he left for basic training 3 days after graduation. So that's a pretty fast turnaround. His daughter was already 2.5 at the time, and he graduated recruit training, and he made the Marines a career. And this is where it gets real good, guys. He made it all the way up the highest you can go, E9, and he actually got out the military serving at the Pentagon. So he went from having a teen mom, even being a teen dad, and then climbing the ranks and making it all the way up the chain. He also served at Quantico, Somalia, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and he had over 29 years of service and he moved to El Paso, Texas. What he did next is also great. He started 3 companies. He has a real estate investment company, a sports nonprofit, and he also opened the city's first frozen yogurt truck that also serves non-dairy options, which is great, man. So, Wayne, man, I appreciate you sharing all this information with me, and I'm so happy to have you on. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Hey, and thank you for having me, man. It's always great. Everyone has a story. It's always great to come on and kind of tell my story and talk to people who have had some trials and basically let them know that, it's just a bump in the road and that you can continue on, man, and still do great things.
Absolutely. Hey, I guess let's just start with some questions from your childhood, man, because I can only imagine, but I want you to paint the picture for everyone what it was like growing up to a teen mom. Obviously, you fell on tough times, but what kept you going, man? Was it your mom's drive? Was it a little bit of everything? But I'll just open it up to you, and you can touch on anything you want with that.
Yeah. So so obviously, thing about being a parent, and that I've learned is that there's no book, right? There's no guidebook. There's no playbook. You kind of do the best you can, and that's kind of what my mom did, right? Didn't have any support, and then she realized that, hey, this is tough with no education, and then we went into foster care. The 3 foster homes I had, they were all great people. Foster parents are awesome. So I don't have any bad stories about foster care because they were all great.
Okay.
So obviously her willingness to reach out and ask for help is crucially important. My uncles. So I had 2 uncles on my mom's side that I lived with, and I had 1 uncle on my dad's side that I lived with. And those gentlemen, took me in like they're their own. Like I was their own kid. I lived with them for years. So they gave me, positive mentorship, positive male role models. On my mom's side, both those gentlemen were veterans of the Vietnam War. And then on my dad's side, my uncle was the first person to get his master's degree. So those are all great positive male role models. So they kind of helped, teach me about character, about discipline, and keep me on the track.
Okay. What was your feeling going through your head when you found out you got your high school sweetheart pregnant? What was your first thought?
Man, I was like, oh shit. I was like, what do I do now? Right. I mean, I was 16. I was in 10th grade. Obviously I was being irresponsible. Right. And then I was like, oh crap, now what? Right. Do you stay in school? Do you not stay in school? Obviously the whole, my personal beliefs, the whole abortion thing wasn't an option. So we obviously wanted to keep the baby. My daughter actually turned 33 yesterday.
Okay.
So doing great things. But yeah, and then I had to go tell her dad and her mom, that she was pregnant. So, she was she was 18, I was 16, so she was a senior. I'm a sophomore. So, she's in her senior year, and I'm in 10th grade, and her dad's Army First Sergeant.
Oh,
So,
damn.
so I had to go to the house and tell him, hey, man, got your daughter pregnant. So yeah, it was tough. You're like, holy crap, what do I do? Obviously, there's a lot of responsibility. She quit school in her senior year. And she took care of the baby, had the baby for 2 years. Then when I was a senior, she came back to school and graduated with me as a senior. And then by then my daughter was 2.5, and I was like, hey, got to find a way to find something that I like, but also a way to take care of, my family. Right. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's when I looked in the Marines, joined, and then came back after recruit training, got married. Because you think that's the right thing to do. You want to kind of do what everyone tells you to do, and you want to have, 2-parent family and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, it was definitely challenging. I worked a full-time job. So I worked at Little Caesars, and I worked at Bojangles.
Okay.
Full-time, had to live with my mom, but still had to, support the baby, and all that other good stuff. But yeah, it was tough, man.
I can only imagine, man. One of my good friends, and he had a kid when he was in about 16 too, and he was on the basketball team, but he had to drop out, and he had to go to work full time, firehouse sub, man. And you don't make much money when you're like 15, 16, working those, like, I worked at Pizza Hut, and you're making like chump change. So, respect to you for doing that, man, because a lot of people will fold up. It doesn't matter if it's a mom or a dad. Some people run from that responsibility. So obviously you didn't do that. Your mom set a good example by showing you what hard work looked like. I'm sure, growing up, she was always gone and working and making it happen for you. So, I mean, that was good. What stuck out about the Marines out of all the other services? Was it just the first choice, or is that something that your uncles were into, or how'd that go?
No, so I had one uncle in the Navy. I had Army in Vietnam. My stepdad, we lived at Fort Huachuca, Arizona at the time. My stepdad was a sergeant first class. I went to the All Armed Forces track team championship, and the Marines won everything. I went to a Marine Corps ball at the NCO club, and I saw obviously the esprit de corps. I saw, the uniform was a huge thing to me, because I was like, yo, got a sharp uniform. They're all fit. So I was like, man, these guys are fit. They have a nice uniform. It's a challenge. So I joined the Marines because of that.
Okay. Did you think that when you joined, did you think you were going to do 29 years, or were you just going in to try to get your family straight on your feet and then take it year by year, contract by contract?
Well, I kind of knew in my heart that I would stay, but I was in '96. After my first 4 years, I had left my MOS, went to the mailroom. I had been accepted to college, had a job, and I was going to get out in June of '96. And they came and said, "Hey, man, how will you stay in the Marine Corps?" I said, "Well, my daughter's in Virginia. Get me to Virginia, station there, and I'll stay in the Marines." And this was like March, and I was getting out in June. So I was like, "There's no way in heck these guys can get me to Virginia, because there's not a whole lot of Marines there. It's mostly Army and Navy."
Sure.
And it's so late. I don't know. That was 3 months for EAS and ETS, and he come back the next day. He's like, "Hey, I got your orders." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Where at?" He's like, "Norfolk, Virginia." I'm like, "No way." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "All right, cool. Let's do this." So my intention was 4 years and get out, but I basically kept getting promoted. I kept getting to go where I wanted to go to. I was doing well, so I just kept re-enlisting. And the next thing you know, I'm at 20, and then I'm at 30, and then call it a day.
Man, so did looking back on all those years, did it go by fast for you?
Obviously at the time, it's not going by fast, because you're deploying. It goes by slow when you're in it, but looking back, I was like, holy crap. It went by pretty quick. I never planned on doing 20 years, 30 years, definitely not doing 29, 30 years. I was doing my 4 and get out. So it did actually go by pretty quick looking back in hindsight, but it was a great time, man. It's like anything, there's positives and negatives, great leaders, bad leaders, but in general, I look at my career, I did a lot more than I expected to do. I thought I was going to get out as an E6, because that's what I saw back in the day, in the 90s. Most of my bosses were E6s at 20 years. So yeah, man, it's a lot better than I expected. I accomplished more than I thought I would, and I never thought I would do 20 years or more.
Hey, good for you, man. That's great. You said you went to Iraq, Afghanistan. Did you go to did you ever go to acclimating in Iraq, or were you somewhere else?
Yeah, so the Marines had their like their SSA type unit in TQ, and
That's where I was at too.
I was in Ramadi, so we would drive to TQ to pick up our stuff instead of waiting for them to deliver it. So yeah, I was in TQ because our stuff was over on Lakeside, the bad side of TQ.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I was there, but I was in Ramadi the time that I was there.
What years were you over in Iraq?
I was there for a year, from January 05 to January 06 in Ramadi.
So you were there when it was a hot zone, pretty much. I got there 2000. We got there 2007, almost 09. We did Army unit. We did 13 and a half. We were supposed to do 15 months. We did 13 and a half, and we got cut short a little bit. But we've seen the same Marines come and go now. It's kind of depressing. They're like, come for 70 months, go home for 5, and come back. You're like, damn, we're still here. But it's rough over there, man.
Yeah, it was. That was. I mean, so logistically, it was easier to get stuff in and out. But yeah, it was. You know, Iraq. I had been to Somalia in '94 in Mogadishu as a E3, but yeah, Somalia. I mean, Iraq was different. It was yeah. I mean, I did patrols. You know, got a combat action. Our base was rocketed, RPG'd numerous times because that's where the general was at. So yeah, Iraq was a tough experience.
How was Somalia then? Was that like when it was 94? Was that like Black Hawk Down essentially incident?
So right after the Black Hawk Down, I was the MU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit, the 24th MU, and we were there from January to March, and we actually did the UN withdrawal. So we were there for 3 months, and then we actually did the evacuation and pulled everyone out, except for a Marine fast company. So we were the last guys out of Somalia. Yeah, it was crazy, man, because we were at the airport, then you go in the city, and it was urban warfare, right? And we didn't train a whole lot for that in the 90s when I came in. So yeah, running logistics and patrols and all that stuff in an urban environment. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's still crazy over there now. You turn the news on, they're still doing the same stuff, man. It's just getting worse and worse. Bombings, IEDs. It's crazy. I went over to Africa contracting, and I'm glad I didn't go there. I went to Niger, but they just had a coup, so I guess it's really not any. They weren't as bad as Somalia, but yeah, that's wild. What about Afghanistan? Where'd you end up going? Did you go to Leatherneck or somewhere else?
Yeah, I was at Leatherneck, but I had Marines down in Nole with 3-5. So I went down there to see them, obviously, and that whole area in Helmand, Nole, Sangin. They were getting,
man. Helmand, all Helmand, dude, bad out there.
Yeah, they were getting rocketed a lot. So yeah, that was different because obviously, logistically, you didn't have the roads and the TTPs were different, obviously, and then the conditions out there in in Nole and Sangin were a hell of a lot. They were pretty bad.
What year were you in Afghanistan?
2010.
Oh, I was there too, man. I worked at the Class 1 yard. It's funny. We were always at a Marine base out of Fort Campbell. We always attached to the Marines for some reason. But yeah, that you saw what happened to Leatherneck, right? After like the withdrawal or whatever, they just gave everything up and they just got ransacked, man. All that huge base they built, kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, man. Because that base was nice, had a lot of great,
absolutely,
a lot of money put into it, and then to see, well, same thing with TQ and all the bases in Iraq. I mean, Fallujah. Once we left, they were turned over to the the forces of that country, and then they were just basically, they were crap, which is kind of unfortunate and disheartening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looking back at all those deployments, what sticks out to you the most as the worst one?
They were all shitty. Honestly, with you, the thing with Somalia was really the suck out was, starvation. Seeing a human starve and seeing the effects of starvation. I used to watch commercials on TV with Sally Struthers, and she would show kids in Africa who were like, starving. And you think to yourself, you're like, man, there's no way in hell that a kid looks like that in real life, right? There must be something wrong. But in Somalia, I saw severe starvation. I saw the effects of starvation. I saw people fighting over, 3 inches of water. You're on a patrol and you throw a water bottle off the back of the vehicle, and then you look and you see, 2 or 3 people fighting over 3 inches of water. So the extreme starvation in Africa was crazy. That's always on my mind. And then, Iraq, I mean, constant bombing of the base, right? RPGs, Had a guy who came down to supply to get some stuff, and then a couple hours later, he got hit by an RPG and died. So the realization of death in body was no joke. Afghanistan was obviously, the military service member, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, they're all doing great stuff. It's just, again, austere fighting conditions, and just seeing how much, our fighting men and women go through in combat in Afghanistan. Because I went and had Thanksgiving dinner in No-Lay, tea rations. Had an Air Force A-10 on station, which is this awesome sound when you have to go down. It's just, yeah, man, the fighting spirit of our young men and women that join the military and the stuff they go through. It's stuff unlike, that most Americans, don't even understand or imagine. But just seeing the resilience of our veterans is pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All great points. How was it for you to transition back to family life and just family life and just garrison, or were you just always on the go? But what was that like for you?
Yeah, the transition, man. So in Somalia, we had a 14-day transition. So when you got you had to transition back to the U.S. You had counselors that came on board and talked to you about transitioning, about how to get home. So you talked about transition, right? So
yeah.
Kind of gave you a time in which to kind of, cool off and kind of understand how things are going to be. When we got into Iraq and Afghanistan, you were moving in and out of garrison and combat rather quickly. So it was hard to transition from the mindset of being in combat, being on high alert, high attentiveness, to coming home, right? Because over there, life is pretty simple when you're deployed. I mean, you're getting shot at. It's pretty austere, but it's not that difficult other than living wise. So I think that I just think we need to do a better job of transitioning our veterans from, because the time frame you get to kind of turn that switch off is very limited. So when you get home now, okay, cool. Now you got speed limits. Now you have, things still going on in your mind in combat, but you're in a garrison environment. So, you have all these things that annoy you. You have all these things that upset you. You're on high alert. You're very attentive, but you haven't had time for your thought process to change from garrison to combat and vice versa.
What'd you struggle with the most, coming back and forth like that?
My biggest struggle was being really alert, obviously looking at exits. When I came back, even I came back from Afghanistan, I went to Virginia, and there's a pretty significant Arab population in Northern Virginia. So I remember being in a mall and having an Arab lady, who was covered and had a burqa, and her kid was not, but they were playing with my son. So I had to stop and think. I was like, hey, I'm not back in Iraq and Afghanistan. She's not a threat, because the whole burqa thing and the whole cover thing kind of came to my mind. But yeah, just the high attentiveness, a lot of alertness, irritability, having to deal with kids and the stresses of life. That was very challenging.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I would say mine was kind of like a road rage, and just all fight or flight all the time. Never have your back turned. Don't want to be around a lot of people. Don't even want to fly, because when we first flew to Iraq, man, we got shot at in the C-130, and they had to do a combat landing, and that was kind of a rude awakening. The first time flying flying from Kuwait to Iraq and just getting shot at. They got to get you on the ground as fast as possible, get off the plane, and then they're right back up. That was kind of a wake-up call of what's really going on over there. So, yeah. What about your troops and stuff like that? All your Marines, what did you see them struggle with? Because I'm sure you climbed through the ranks, and when you left Afghanistan, what was your rank? Were you a master guns or something like that, or staff sergeant?
I was an E7, a gunnery sergeant, but I've been selected a master sergeant E8. So same thing with the Marines, man. It's just them understanding how life is going to be back in the rear, right? It just, again, now you have the ability to drink alcohol, so you really don't address your problems. You kind of mask it with alcohol. They had some of the same issues, obviously, with alertness, with road rage, because when you're in a convoy, there's no
one's getting in. No one's getting in the middle of the car. You know what I mean? Or they're getting the engine block's getting shot out or something like that. So
yeah, there's no speed limits. There's no stop signs. and you're just, you're just driving. So now you get back to the States. Now you got a stop sign. Now you got all these rules. You got people coming close to you, which you're not used to, right? So yeah, it's same type of stuff, man. And then just getting those young men and women to understand that even though our culture in the military tells you not to ask for help, to seek help. When I went to mental health counseling as an E7, and I was the only E7 in there.
Wow.
That's a whole crap load of like, E4s, a few sergeants, but corporals and below in there. But I never saw my peers there. I was the only every time I went to mental health on Camp Pendleton, I was the only gunnery sergeant that was in there.
Damn. Okay, 2-part question on that. What made you want to go seek that help, for one? And 2, do you think looking back on it now, do you think you should have went earlier?
So the first question, what made me seek help was, I had been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and I knew I had changed. I knew my thought process had changed. And I was like, hey man, I can't tell Marines to go do something if I'm not willing to do it myself. So, part of his leadership by example, right? I'm going to show them that, hey, look, if I'm asking for help as a gunnery sergeant, you as a sergeant, a staff sergeant, or a corporal, a lance corporal, then you can go ask for help as well. So I kind of want to lead by example, but I knew I needed the help. And I had been in 18 years at point. Your second question, when I came back from Somalia, I had the beginnings of PTSD. 19 years old, I've been in the Marine Corps for a year and a half, and now I'm in Mogadishu. I didn't seek help. No one told you to get help. It was a different time in the military in 93, 94. I wish I would have went earlier. I wish I would have went more often. But I'm glad that I did go at least, but I should have went earlier and more often. Yes.
Absolutely. Hey, appreciate you sharing that, because that's all valid, man. Like you said, it was a different time. You're more frowned upon, like we were talking about sort of before we hit record. Like, it's kind of like, oh, you're weak or something like that if you go seek help. But all that stuff's there for us to use. It's not like it can't be used against you if you're going out and seeking help. But I'm sure by you doing that as a senior leader, you had your troops follow line. I'm sure it was probably you and maybe some of your soldiers or Marines that were in there that were getting help because they saw you doing it. You swallowed your pride, you swallowed whatever you want to call it, and said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and seek help. So good for you, man. I did too. I didn't go at first, and I only made E6. I did 8 years in the Army, but at the same time, like, you just, who cares really what someone else thinks? Because at the end of the day, you can't fight the battle alone, right? You're not going to fight the battle on the battlefield alone, and everyone's battling with their mind, whether you like to admit it or not. And if you've been deployed, if you've seen the stuff you've seen, if you've seen stuff other people have seen on a deployment, it's not the same. It's not the same as other people that have never seen that. So good for you, man. And what would be your like little 30-second motivational speak to someone that's still trying to go through it themselves, that may be on the fence of going? What would you tell them?
I would tell them that it's okay to go, that the military is temporary. Whether you do 4 years or you do 30 years, there's going to come a time when you're going to exit the military. And at that time, you need to be the best you that you can be. You need to be a productive citizen. It's okay to ask for help. Just like you said, you can't do it alone. It's all about teamwork. It's all about leadership. It's going to improve you. And you just, what you do and what you go through is not normal. So it's okay to go and talk to somebody and ask them for help and to become a better person.
Absolutely. Did you think it helped you when you started going? Did you see like, oh, this is actually helping, and you continue to went?
So in the beginning, I went, but I didn't have much faith in it. I thought it was a bunch of bull crap. I had migraines, and I was like, they're like, oh, try acupuncture. I'm like, man, that crap don't work. But I'm like, you know what? Give it a try. So I actually, I did acupuncture for migraines, and it actually did help. I was like, oh crap, this actually is pretty good. So initially going in, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and ask for help and see what happens. I didn't have a whole lot of hope in the process. But then as I got in and I started started talking, started seeing changes, starting getting different types of therapy, dry needling, as well as the acupuncture, and things started working. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe if I give this stuff a chance, it actually will work. I had a great counselor at Fort Belvoir. Her and I had issues in the beginning. But as I began to try and give her a chance, obviously, and listen to what she was saying, I started seeing, some small changes.
Hey, good for you. So that was been about 15 years you said in. You had about 15 years?
I was 17 and
17?
after Afghanistan in 2010.
Okay, so you still had about like 12 and a half more years left, and that's how'd those go for you?
So I picked up E8. I was at 20 years. I was going to retire. Decided not to. Went to Hawaii. Stood up a new unit there, kind of like basically stood up a new SSA type.
Okay.
Immediate supply at Hawaii. Had a great time in Hawaii. Things were good, not stressful. Obviously, you're in Hawaii; it's relaxing. I was E8 at the time. Got called to the Pentagon, which I was like, didn't want to go to the Pentagon. Didn't want to go to the East Coast. Hated cold weather, right? So went to the Pentagon. Was there for 4.5 years, and then, which was great, doing supply chain policy, in charge of education, transitioning the MOS, all kinds of great things, right? Saw stuff in DC and saw the network and how things work in the Pentagon, kind of how the sausage is made when it comes to like acquisition, money, the politics. So I was like, it was a whole new world in DC, which is pretty amazing. And then I was a branch manager for my last 3 years. So I was the assignments guy. So I knew a lot. So, being able to help Marines with their reenlistments, with their permanent change of station, permanent change of assignment orders, deployments, helping them go to special duties and get promoted. I sat on promotion boards at headquarters Marine Corps. So the last 10 years, 20 to 30, it was a lot of work, a lot of travel, very stressful, but it's great to kind of see the enterprise level at the Pentagon and also how assignments work, reenlistments, special duties, promotion boards. I mean, kind of see how all that stuff is done at the senior levels. Being in headquarters Marine Corps in Quantico in the Pentagon, that was pretty amazing.
When did you start thinking about getting out? Did you know that you're just going to get out at 30? Was your cap, or when did you start devising a plan of your exit?
So when I was in the Pentagon, and then when I went down to Quantico, body man, I just realized that the physical fitness tests were harder. We longer to recover. My body was hurting more, so I did all I could to, basically to stay into the last minute, right? But then it came to the point where I was like, you know what, it's been good. I'm satisfied personally and professionally of where I've been, what I've done in the Marine Corps. And your body is tough when you're 48 years old, 47 years old. You run 3 miles, you're doing a fireman's carry. After 29 years of combat experience and all the stuff we put our bodies through in the military, it's a young man's game, first of all, young man, woman's game. And then when you're, like I said, when you're in your 40s and nearing 50, stuff gets a lot harder.
And you're on the East Coast, man. Yeah, that cold weather probably give you a little, it don't feel good when you get a little arthritis and you're in the cold. So I'm sure your body felt it.
Oh yeah, that killed my arthritis. I mean, between my legs, my hips, my back, my neck. I mean, cold weather killed me. So that kind of sucked when you're taking a physical fitness test or a combat fitness test in the cold. You're like, oh my God.
That should have kept you in Hawaii, man. You would have done 40 maybe.
Man, I loved Hawaii. I loved San Diego. And DC was great too. It's just the weather, man.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
The really big thing too, if we touch on medical a little bit, yeah, man, I just started, the body started hurting, man, started breaking down.
Yeah, absolutely. So like during your first 28, 29 years, do you ever go like really get seen for any like your knees or your ankles or did you ever even do it while you're in service, or was that something you picked up when you were out? What that look like?
Yeah, so I always had aches and pains and stuff, but the military, especially, well, I know for a fact the Marines and the Army, it's really looked down upon to go to medical, right? You're ostracized. People tell you that you're weak. They tell you to suck it up, and you kind of buy into that, right? Peer pressure. It's an amazing thing, both positive and negative, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I went to medical for the very first time at 15 years as E7. I was like, yeah, my knees hurt. I went to medical. They're like, yeah, no wonder. You have a torn meniscus. I'm like, what the hell is that? And they're like, yeah, and then I said, okay, my back hurts. Well, they're like, yeah, no wonder. You got an L4, L5 fracture that you've been running and don't know how long it's been there. So yeah, man, I bought into the culture. of not going to medical, especially as a senior leader, right? As a gunnery sergeant at E7. And I went and I was like, yeah, no wonder I hurt because I have all these damn injuries. So then I started going more often, right? I had a great mentor. My boss at the time, Master Sergeant Nix, was like, take your butt to medical, man. You're an E7. You can retire at 20. It's not a big deal. So I started going. And then obviously as I got into the Pentagon, it was a little easier to go to medical. Got into Quantico, it was a little easier. So as I progressed with the ranks, it was a little easier to go. And I understood the value because I started feeling the effects of it, right? And then I knew that if I went to medical, people would see me, my peers, and people, junior and senior, would see me, and then they would go as well. So I tried to kind of change the culture of the group around me and let people know, hey, man, you can go to medical. It's okay. It's kind of what it's here for. And if you're hurting, go, because there's a reason, right? And I'm not saying go there and live there and be a sick bay commando or malinger, but if your body hurts, there's a reason. Go check it out, because what you're doing in the military is not normal. It's not what an average American does. So you're going to feel it quicker and earlier and probably more severe than your civilian counterparts.
Absolutely. Did you ever have anyone that was in your direct circle or around you that just said, no, I'm good, thanks, and just always wrote medical off?
Yeah, I mean, you always have those. I mean, I had an individual who was like, yeah, same thing. I'm good. I'm not going to go, whatever. And I tried to talk to the individual. I'm saying, hey, man, you need to go. Here's why. He eventually did go. And then he was like, hey, I should have listened to you. I was like, hey, bro, I'm here. And then women too, right? Women in the military, they encounter the same stuff we do, but affects them differently, right? And they get ostracized even more. I mean, in Ramadi, in Fallujah, the first women Marines to get killed were from my unit. It's called the FET team, the Female Engagement Team, right? They got hit at a ECP in Fallujah. Holly Charette, Ramona Valdez, and then there's a couple other ones. They were the first females in Iraq, female Marines, to get killed, and they're my unit. So, and then obviously in 2010 we had the Lioness program, which is what it kind of went to. But I'm glad to see that there's organizations now led by and female service members are doing stuff, going to medical, because for them, I think it's harder for a female military service member to go to medical because they get it's harder for them, right? We talk more crap about them, we give them a hard time, so they have more problems going to medical than the men do, but they deal with stuff differently, right? Because obviously, women look at things differently, psychologically, physically, it's different. So I'm glad to see that women are going to medical now. You're starting to see veterans organizations ran by women veterans. So yeah, they have, I think they have a harder challenge going to medical and getting stuff documented, and it affects them different. So I definitely encourage all those female service members out there and the veterans to go, seek VA benefits, or if they're still in, to basically go get their stuff documented, because it's important for all of us, men and women, both, to go be seen while we're in service. And then when we get out, to go to the VA and seek compensation for those injuries we have. Absolutely.
You're right about that, because females do have it hard, and back in the day they even had it harder. I talked to a guest one time, her name was Lisa, and she was in maintenance, and she said she was the only female in there, and she was getting sexually assaulted, this, that, and it's like, damn, man, you're making it hard on your own kind, because we're all in it for the same reason. We're all doing the same thing for the greater good of the nation, for yourself, for your family, whatever the case may be. But you're right, like, females do have it pretty hard in the military, it seems like. So if you're a female, don't be ashamed to go seek help. And if someone talks down on you, they must have something wrong with themselves, because no one in their right mind would do that for someone just trying to go help themselves. So don't let that deter you from the task at hand, the help that you need. When you were being an E9, right? Like, I want to ask you this question. And did you guys talk about all the medical stuff and all the did you guys know what was on the other side as far as benefits, about whatever the case may be? Was that something that was talked about, or did everyone just kind of go their own way?
So the thing about the military, man, is that number one, most of us don't know what's to the outside, right? Because I spent my whole adult life in the military, so I'd never been a civilian. went from high school to the Marines, and then now I'm out. Now I'm 48, getting ready to get out. So I never knew what was on the outside. People talk about more money. They talk about it being different, but you really don't know. One thing the military needs to improve upon is the transition process, right? So commanders, they don't want to lose. They don't want to lose people to go for a week or 2 week to a transition program, right?
Right.
Then when you get there, when you get to a TAP program, they fire hose you with a whole crap load of information. I mean, when I went, I had a recorder. So I would say is take a voice recorder. I sat in the front and I recorded all the presentations so I could go back and listen to them, right? Because after the first day, I was like, there's no way I can retain all this information. I have like life insurance. I have college. I have jobs. I have entrepreneurship. I mean, it's just so much information. There's no way to take notes on all that stuff, to retain all that stuff. So my advice to those that are going to transition would be to take a voice recorder, sit in the front, and to record, or you take your phone and record all the presentations. So you can go back and listen to them, because it's just so much information. It's a short amount of time. You got people calling you and say, hey man, come back to work. You got people calling you and saying, hey, I need you to do this. So the commanders, it's something they have to do, but they're focused on something else, right? And then the service member is just getting flooded with a whole crap load of information. So yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough to transition and there's so much stuff that they don't tell you as well.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right.
So yeah, I mean, I got out and I didn't elect. I got my ID card. I did medical. I didn't elect dental because I didn't know that dental and medical were separate. So I didn't elect dental on time. So I had a whole year where I paid for dental because I had to wait for the open period.
Okay.
So yeah, no one, hitting those guidelines when you retire or when you get out. So when you retire, you have a certain amount of days for medical, dental. I missed the dental deadline and had to wait a whole year, so I paid out of pocket. And then you got like life insurance. No one tells you about life insurance. Okay, cool. You should have whole life, term life. You should have something, especially as a retiree. And you should have life insurance before you file your VA claim. No one tells you that either, right? Because once you file your VA claim, all that stuff's documented. Now you become insurable, or it's very, very expensive.
Yeah, more of a liability because you got all these things wrong with you now instead of getting it before. You're right. That's a really good point. That and tape recorder, honestly, I haven't really heard those two yet. Yeah.
So I mean, especially if you're a retiree, well, anybody in general, but especially retiree, before you file your VA claim, get life insurance.
Okay.
Then use that tape recorder or your phone, voice recorder, whatever, during transition classes, because it's a whole crap load of information. And it's just, again, you going from the military is pretty easy in terms of they do shit for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you're getting out of the military with no support system. You're going back to hometown America with no veterans like you, very few in most cases. The veteran service organizations, they do the best they can, but a lot of those guys and gals have been out of the military for years. So you're going back to your hometown with not a whole lot of support, and you got a whole lot of information, and you're like, now what? You're so used to people kind of holding your hand and telling you what to do and where to go. And now you're independent with all this information and no support. You're like, holy crap, now what do I do?
Yeah, especially if you only did like, say, 4, 3, even 15 years. If you don't have the retirement check, you don't really have any money to fall back on, or the disability. So that's why it's so vital, like we've been talking about, get your stuff documented, get your VA claim in before you get out of the military. Don't be like me and wait and have to take 5 years to get what you deserve. No, do it while you're in, while you can maybe get the ball rolling. And I was going to ask you, did you file for disability while you were still in, or did you do that when you were out?
So because I left, so I did a DOD skill bridge over here in El Paso. So okay. I left and came here to El Paso. I wanted to file my claim here in El Paso so I could do my appointments here. Okay. So I'm done, but I actually didn't submit it until the day after retirement.
Okay, well that's not bad. Did all of it work out for you pretty good?
Yeah, I mean everything was documented. I had a great VSO from the VFW, former Army guy, Army infantry officer that did a great job. So I obviously got my disability, as a combat veteran. So yeah, my process was actually pretty good coming out because I had time to document stuff on the way out. I had a great VSO. I filed the claim in the city I was in, so my appointments were all scheduled right here. So I actually had experience with the VA in my position, so no negative stories here about the VA.
Okay, that's a positive note. Then I know a lot of people like to do that. I mean, I'm not. There's good and bad and everything. Like we were talking about earlier, I don't think everyone at the VA is here to not help veterans. Some people that work at the VA are really truly trying to help, just like anywhere else. So I think that people use that for an excuse, saying the VA is not going to do this, the VA is not going to do that. Well, we got to do most of the legwork. You got to get the stuff documented. You got to go see a VSO or someone that's going to help you put that claim in, and you got to make your appointments, and you got to be honest. You got to swallow your pride, go in there, let your guard down a little bit, and let these people know what's going on, because you're gonna go talk to a VSO that you've never met before. They're gonna type in your claim, then they're gonna send it. Okay, you're gonna get an appointment. You got a CMP exam. Okay, this person you've never met before, and you only have 1 hour with them, so you can't. There's no time to waste. Tell them everything you need. Tell them, don't hold anything back. So then they put their notes in. Then they send it to somebody else who's never even met you, and you're never gonna meet, and they're gonna make a decision. So that's why it's so vital just to, would you say that's true?
Yeah, man. I would, and that's the thing too, is when you go for these CMP exams, you're no longer in the military, right? Be honest, be vulnerable, and when it hurts, stop, right?
Yeah, seriously.
Don't push it and be like, a little bit of pain, because here's the deal: is they're looking at to see, do you have a prior condition that was aggravated by your military service, or do you have something that occurred to you in the military? Because what you do in the military is unlike what your American civilian counterparts do. So forget about sucking it up. Forget about the next promotion. Forget about trying to make the next reenlistment. Now it's time to focus on you. And now it's time for you to be vulnerable and say, hey, look, man, it hurts here. I'm not going to keep on pushing it. You know what I'm saying? You got to be vulnerable. You got to be honest. And that was tough for me too, man. I mean, they asked questions about, TBI, PTSD, relationships, about, shoulder injuries. And you just have to say, hey, man, I got to here and it hurts, and stop.
Right.
Because nothing to gain by going further. Right. And again, what you go through as a military man and woman is unlike what your civilian counterparts go through. And now we're just trying to see, was this as a result of your military service? Or is it an old football injury that you had in high school that was aggravated as a result of your military service?
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't go in there on a high horse thinking that, hey, if you got a back injury, they tell you to bend over and touch your toes and you're aching to get down there, because some of it's based off range of motion, and they're going to measure. They get the ruler out, or they try to say, oh, they got this or that. So like you said, don't go in there thinking you can do it all and you're like Superman or Superwoman. Just go in there and tell them when it hurts and go from there. So good advice on that. Let's touch on when you started getting out Marines. Did you know that you were going to get into all these business ventures, the real estate investment company, the sports nonprofit, and the frozen yogurt truck, or how those all come about?
No. So I did the DoD skill bridge, which is great. And that was a SAP skill bridge, which is great here in El Paso. Kind of took a break. The nonprofit, I mean, so I had been doing real estate for my time in the Marine Corps, buying houses. So that was nothing new, right? Buying houses, and then a long-term hold, just buying them, fixing them, and renting them out, right? I had been doing that for a while. So that was nothing new.
How'd you get into that real quick? How'd you start thinking about that?
It just made sense, man. I mean, I had good mentors that told me about the value of investing in houses, and and I just basically said, okay, cool, let's houses, right? And then just having great mentors that shared knowledge, which was invaluable. The nonprofit, I mean, I grew up as a single parent. My mom was a single parent. Back in the 70s, 80s, when you played sports, it was free. You didn't pay for nothing. It was great. Nowadays, sports are very expensive. If you want to get equipment, it costs money. If you want to go to a camp, it costs money. You want to go to a traveling team, it costs money. So when I came to El Paso, I realized, I'm like, hey, man, sports has become the separation between the haves and the have-nots, right? If your parents got money, no matter how good you are, even if you suck, you're still going to go to a camp. You're going to still have good equipment. You're still going to go to the travel team, possibly, right? But if you're underserved young man or woman, and your parents don't have no money, no matter how good you are, it's tough to be able to afford that stuff, right? So I started the nonprofit Pathway to Sports in order to basically help fund young men and women to play sports, because it's about movement, right? Being active, but more importantly, it's about the things that sports teach you, right? The character, the discipline, the resilience. Everyone's not a winner, no matter what they tell you. That's a bunch of bull crap. Because in life, it's about winning and losing, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, the resilience, the self-discipline, self-reliance, teamwork. I mean, so all these skills that you learn in sports is really what it's all about. I mean, yeah, you want to move and keep them from being obese and things of that nature, but it's more about those skills, right? So we basically help fund underprivileged, underserved young men and women in El Paso. If you have, we had a young lady who wanted to play soccer, but she couldn't get the shoes, right? So we pay for the shoes. Volleyball, I didn't know, is super expensive. Crap. Dance, gymnastics, cheerleading.
That might be the most. That might be the most expensive, man. That one's crazy. That one's crazy, dude. Like $100 a session. You know what I mean? Or you can go play. Yeah, it is. My son plays soccer, and it's $100 every season, which isn't bad. But like you said, cleats they're growing, man. You wear the cleats for like 2 months, they're in another size. And they want to play travel ball, $1,000. You want to do this, that. It's yeah, you're right, dude. It's no joke, man. Respect to you for doing that. It's actually a pretty cool venture, I would say, man. That's awesome.
And then for the young man, man, baseball, super expensive.
Bats, cleats, come on, man. Yeah, all of it.
Baseball, football. I mean, so sports are very expensive. If your parents have money, you'll play sports and do this stuff, right? But the end result really is you want to get a talented young man or woman who has the skill. You want to break that barrier of money, right? So now what happens is they're on the travel team, right? Because we help them out. Now the travel team, now they're getting noticed. So now they have the potential of getting a D1 or a D2 scholarship. So now they're getting an education that they could never afford.
There you go.
So really the end goal is, get them into sports, but if they're talented, help them get to the D1, D2 scholarship. And I'm actually a fan of Division II over Division I, because Division I everyone aspires to, which I think is, kind of bullcrap. But D2, they pay for your education. You actually get to play. D1, you might get a scholarship. They're not giving you a whole lot of money. And a lot of times you may be riding the pine, on the things.
That's true.
I'm a fan of Division II scholarships.
Even JUCO, man. Even JUCO for 2 years, get education paid for. Do your undergrad or do your 2 years and go. Maybe you get your skill up and transfer somewhere else.
Yeah, I love JUCOs, man. The junior colleges, because most places have a crosstown agreement. So you go there for half the price, knock out your GE stuff, right? Get all your A stuff, and then you transfer to the university in the same town. They take the credit, and now you're a junior, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper. It's the same education.
Yeah, seriously. Absolutely, dude. Hey, good for you, man. I'll probably talk to you about that. Maybe I could do something like that in Florida sometime.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, man. What about the frozen yogurt truck? How'd you get onto that?
Man, that was crazy. So basically here in El Paso, man, there's a whole lot of food trucks. A lot of tacos, a lot of barbecue brisket, all that stuff is great. But desserts, you basically have, shave ice. I'm not going to say the company's name, but you have shave ice.
Kona ice?
Who knows?
Dude, everywhere, man. They're everywhere, man.
So you have a franchise, right? It's ice and sugary syrup. Okay, cool. Not too healthy, right?
Absolutely.
Paletas, Mexican, pretty healthy. But you also have a lot of people who are lactose intolerant, or especially in the Mexican community, or that are vegan, right? So what I saw the fact that there was no frozen yogurt that was in the truck space that was healthy and affordable, and also served those that are diabetic or vegan or lactose intolerant. So I said, okay, did some research, and then I got into it's not a franchise like Kona. It's a license. So Peach Wave Yogurt is out of Holland, Michigan. And it's a license where basically you pay to buy the yogurt, but the rest is on you, man. There's no system. They don't take none of your profits. So you make what you make, man. I mean, I finance the truck, obviously. But yeah, I buy the yogurt from Peach Wave. I mix it with water, milk. I put it in the machine, and then I sell it at whatever price I want. They recommend a price. but you don't have to go with it. You do your own marketing, your own advertisement. So the license is a heck of a lot more beneficial than the franchise. So that's the route that I went.
Okay. What did you end up doing for a truck? Did you get like a box truck and then just had it, fabricated to your specifications?
Now I used Concession Nation out of Florida, and they specialize in building, top of the line frozen yogurt trucks. So I went with a really good frozen yogurt truck, and I did that. It was like $80,000. But with the stores, you paying $250,000 or $300,000, and you're going to take 2.5 years to get your money back. In a truck, you can pay off that truck in a year and a half.
Yeah.
So you're paying the truck off in a year and a half. You're not paying those franchise fees. Now it's just straight license. I mean, so your opportunity to make money and go places and move and come to the customer is a heck of a lot better than being in a store. So that's why I didn't do a store, because you're in a set location and there's more risk, and it takes longer to get your money back. Whereas in a truck, if it's cheaper, I can come to the customer. And nowadays, people sell about convenience, right? So I can go to a football game and sell. I can go to a birthday party and sell. So for the food truck, and because no one's doing frozen yogurt in El Paso, so I was the only guy doing frozen yogurt, and I was selling low sugar for diabetics, because obviously Hispanic community, a lot of diabetes, and I was doing non-dairy. So if you're lactose intolerant, which most of the Mexicans are as you age, or you're vegan, which is a growing vegan community here in El Paso as well, which is surprising, I'm the only guy you can come to. So it was great.
Joe, you got that target market, man. You narrowed it down. I might need to get with you on that too. I used to always want to do a food truck, but I was like, man, it's just so many, a lot of, I don't know. It's good, but coming from the food service industry, you're always gone. You're getting roasted in the kitchen all day. I still love to cook, but not an ice cream thing or a frozen yogurt truck. That's pretty interesting, man. Because you're right about that Kona. They're everywhere, and it's not healthy, dude. It's like I said, it's all sugar. It tastes good, but it's gonna rot your teeth out. And older people that are trying to lose weight aren't gonna just get one of those. But yeah, good for you, man. You seem like you narrowed that down and got it going for you. You working on the truck sometimes, or you got people to do it all for you?
A little bit of both. I mean, I love that. An air conditioned truck and selling frozen yogurt, easy.
Absolutely, dude. Make it, just putting that lever down, right? Pulling that lever down the frozen yogurt, ringing them up, dude. That's what's up, man. Good for you, dude.
Yeah,
what you got planned in the future? What do you see yourself doing?
So what I've been getting into lately is leadership, mentoring. What I realized out here is there's not a whole lot of people that are really effective leaders. They're great managers of things, but they don't really lead people like in the military, right? A young man or woman who's 18 to 22, he or she has more responsibility and more leadership skills than a lot of these managers out here. They understand efficiency, they understand people, they understand, the value of being a servant leader. So I'm getting into some leadership mentoring, and then, time management, but more importantly is energy management, right? So everyone's like, block out your schedule, you write all your stuff down, and that's cool. But what's really not talked about is energy management. So, okay, cool. You have all this stuff down on a piece of paper, block by block, hour by hour. But when are you the most effective? When do you have the most energy? Don't do it at 1 o'clock after chow, after you had lunch. You're tired. You ain't getting right? So when are you the most energetic? Most people in the morning time, right? So in the morning time, that block of 2 hours is when you're going to do the stuff that's the most important. Requires the most thinking, right? I mean, if you get a sales call at 4:30, who's going to listen to a sales call at 4:30? So it's all about understanding your energy level when you're the most effective, and then that's when you want to actually do those important tasks. Vice when you're tired or not engaged. So it's really about a combination of time management, but also energy management.
Okay, and we got to touch on food. You said food real quick. Got to touch on chow. Because I was food service in the Army, but I got to ask you, what was your favorite defect? You've been to a lot of them, I'm sure, in 30 years. What's the one that sticks out to you the most out of all the ones you ate at?
So not really a defect, but in Somalia, the Marines had the old MREs with the heat tabs.
Okay.
The Army was leaving, so they left all the new MREs with pound cake. So instead of burying them in this big hole, the Marines just took all the new MREs from the Army when they left.
Yeah.
Crap, this is pound cake. This is awesome. The flameless heaters. I mean, my favorite one probably would have to been leatherneck, man. It was crazy.
Leatherneck had like 5 defects, dude. So like you just take your pick where you want to go. Stir fry, surf and turf, steak night, all they threw down over there, man.
Yeah, but yeah, man. One real quick thing about transition. So if you go to Google and you type in ONET, so a lot of times young men and women in the military are very skilled. They have a lot of responsibility, but they're not very good at articulating their skill set and their responsibilities and what they've done. Right. When you go to ONET, onetonline.org, I believe it is, you can type in your branch of service, you can type in your MOS, and it basically articulates in verbiage that's not jargon, not abbreviation, not curse words, but it actually articulates your skill set for you. And you can use that for resumes. So I think the key for young men and women is when you transition, you've done a lot of great things. You are very valuable, but unless you can articulate intelligently in writing and verbally what you've done in the military, it's not going to mean nothing out here. So you got to be able to say, look, I was in charge of 20 people, and I managed a budget of, $1 million, or I improved. Just don't say, hey, I improved this process. No, we streamlined this process and we saved the company, $500,000, right? Or this many man hours. So you have to be able to quantify and articulate what you did, because out here, it's all about money, right? It's all about efficiency. So we have young men and women that are very intelligent, that are very great assets to corporate America. But unless they can articulate their skill set and how they're going to improve and save that company money or improve a process, it means nothing out here.
No, absolutely, man. I appreciate you sharing that too. I wanted to ask another question real quick. What are some of the best VA benefits that you've used to date? Anything that sticks out to you?
So best VA, I use counseling. I use mental health counseling. Mental health counseling is huge. I use that. Going and getting blood work. The CPAP machine, right? Even though it's difficult to sleep with, I use that. So, yeah, another thing too, man, real quick about the VA and benefits in general is, in the military, you think it's no big deal, right? It doesn't hurt a whole lot. Still go to medical.
Yeah, seriously.
Hurts me, right? Because what's going to happen is you're going to go to medical for all this small stuff, right? And you think it's no big deal. When you get out, the VA is going to say, hey, that's service connected, but we're giving you 0%. Okay. So most importantly is service connected.
Yes, sir.
0%, which means you ain't getting no money.
Right.
But in 3 years, when it gets worse, you go back and say, hey, man, I had this condition at 0%, but now it's got worse. And then they evaluate you and say, yeah, it has got worse. And they raise your percentage to like 20%. Now you're getting monetary compensation for that claim that got worse over time. So my point is, no matter how small it is, go to medical, get it documented. You may get 0%. That doesn't matter. What matters is that it's service connected, because as you age, it will get worse. And when you reevaluated, then you will receive monetary compensation for that thing that was once VA 0 rated, but service connected. So go for the small stuff too, not just the big stuff.
No, you're absolutely right, man. Because did you get a sleep study done while you were in service? I wanted to ask you that real quick.
Yeah, I did.
You did? What made you prompt to get that? Did someone say did your wife or anyone tell you that you were snoring, or did someone just say, hey, you might want to go do this? How'd that go?
Yeah, I was irritable. I was snoring. I was falling asleep during the day. So I was like, man, I'm not getting good sleep. So yeah, went and got this sleep study. And they're like, yeah, you're not going into REM. You're not. Yeah. So then they gave me the CPAP machine while I was in the military. Still in service.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even know anything about it. I got mine when I was out through the VA. Now, a lot of people think you can't get service connected if you get a sleep study while you're out of the service, but that's a lie, because I did. You have to get a medical nexus letter from somebody saying that it's secondary to PTSD or whatever your conditions may be. But even if you're out of service right now, don't let that deter you from going and get a sleep study. If your significant other saying you're snoring or you're tired, you're irritable, like Wayne was saying, go get a sleep study, man. See if you got it. If they wake you up in the middle of the night with all that stuff, I think you can actually do them at home now. I think they've changed it, but if you get hooked up to all that stuff and they wake you up in the middle of the night, you probably got sleep apnea because they're putting the CPAP on you. But yeah, good for you having that done. And what about like the VA loan and stuff like that? Were you using that when you were buying all your houses, like back to back? Were you changing duty stations, or were you just doing that like traditional FHA or whatever down?
No, VA loan.
Okay.
Yeah, VA loan, and then obviously hard money, but yeah, VA loan, and then living it while I was there, and then when I PCS, rent the house out.
Smart.
Yeah, so using the VA loan, using hard money, buying houses as you PCS. Yeah, man. Then over time you accumulate, obviously, and then there's a little bit of cash flow. But more importantly, is someone's paying your mortgage for you, and then obviously the house is going up. So yeah, I mean, real estate even now, even though the rates are high now, in 24 they're projected to go down. So then you'll be able to refinance. So yeah, I mean, I think buying a house is always a good thing.
Okay. What's one thing you missed about the Marines?
So what's funny, man, is people always ask that question, right? Well, they ask two questions. The first question is always like, "Hey, do you miss it?" And I always tell them, "I don't miss the circus. I miss the clowns."
That's a good one. I never heard that.
I don't miss the military and some of the bureaucracy and some of the politics and all the other crazy crap.
Yeah.
I miss the Marines, right? So I miss the people. I mean, our veterans are amazing people. They do great stuff. They're resilient. So I miss being around that type of dedicated man and woman. I miss the people. And then the second question I ask is, are your sons, I have 4 boys, are your boys going to join the military? And my thing is like, hey, man, I'm all about service to our country, service to our community. If they want to join, that's great. But I'm not pushing them that way. We spend a lot of time pushing kids to college and becoming in debt. And as a result of that, we have the trades that have been abandoned.
Absolutely.
The trade skills are amazing. You can actually go get a trade skill, not get no debt, and get paid really well. So I'm really a fan of the trades because not everyone's going to college. Not everyone needs to, not everyone wants to. And then there's a huge amount of debt with that. So I'm a fan of the trades, man.
Yeah, absolutely. HVAC, all that stuff, dude. Big money. Not even like what, 1 year or 2 years. And electrician, yeah, you're right. Even the average age of a farmer is like probably, I think it's like upper of the 50, even 50 something. So it's like there's a need for all that stuff. And you're right. Not everyone wants to go to college, and people are doing stuff online and learning through other programs. So appreciate you sharing that. And I just wanted to open it up to you real quick if you had any closing remarks, and then we'll go from there.
Hey, Michael. Number one, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. Right,
Thank you.
Top 1%. I mean, our veterans are doing great things. We have to take care of them because they're doing stuff that other people are not willing to do. Right, and then we need to take care of them. We need to make sure they're educated about the benefits. We need to make sure that they have a better transition. So, give me the opportunity to come on here and kind of talk about my experience and what I went through, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Because it's not all good. There's some bad stuff too. I definitely appreciate the opportunity, and I hope that the information that I shared, people find useful. So yeah, man, thank you very much.
I know. Thank you for coming on and being vulnerable. And I know someone's going to gain some valuable nuggets. I mean, I've learned a lot talking to you for the last hour, and just appreciate you coming on here. And if you know anyone that's up for the challenge, send them my way. I'm happy to have any veteran on and have them share their story, because like we talked about earlier, we all have stories. We all have the good, bad, and ugly. And, if we can pay it forward to the next veteran in line that may still be in service or hasn't even joined yet, I feel like that's all we can do. So I appreciate you coming on. I look forward to, staying connected with you and seeing how you grow with your businesses. And maybe we could do some joint ventures with the sports stuff here so I could get something going in Florida too. So appreciate you coming on, and everyone for listening in. If you guys got anyone that wants to come on, send it my way, and we'll make it happen. So have a blessed day, and thank you again. Take care.
Thank you.